We are on the morning break in the second day of questioning of the undercover police officer hN118, who, using the cover name Simon Wellingsa, infiltrated globalized resistance and dissent, along with pretty much infiltrated dissent. I mean, it would appear that he's clarified that a fair bit today. I'm joined by Donald O'Driscoll of the Undercover Research Group. What have you made of what we've heard from hN118 this morning?
I'm quite happy.
Yeah, I think just in context. Context is about the hN118 referred to as putting himself in a position to report on rather than infiltrate dissent.
So last week, some time ago.
Yeah, we've only got a short break. We've only got a short break. So yeah.
We got a document where Wellings was supposed to have incredible access to loads of groups all across the country, mostly around dissent, first, all social centres. We took a look at it and went, this is just simply not true. None of this is lies. Nobody remembers him. So we managed to get together a collective statement from a group of people in these, and just dismissing it all. So this was the basis of the questioning this morning. Yeah,
which, essentially, I needn't have bothered. Totally unnecessary process, because quite frankly, he just agreed with every word that you said.
Yes, he said, no, none of this stuff's true. He barely had any access to any of these groups. He hung around, turned up for a few meetings, and that was it. But the managers were saying, oh, but he's amazing. He's got all this access everywhere.
We were taking through a lot of his reports this morning, and it was put to him that essentially what he was doing was copying and pasting information from publicly available sources on websites into police intelligence reports and submitting them to the office. He said, yes, that's exactly what I was doing.
Yeah. For quite a few hours each day.
But it appears towards the end of the he said that by 2007, the majority of his time was spent attending the meetings about the closing of the SDS, and that this was taking up more of his time than actually his undercover deployment. He said that it was considered a good use of his time to do all this reporting from websites, but he started having to do this event log where he had to list every hour of every day what he was doing. And we saw one of these. It was very much in contrast to the 2 phone calls a day that had historically been the nature of SDS reporting. And he was just kind of going sat in my duff cover flat and went on the internet, checked out this bulletin board, this email list, blah, blah, blah. He even admitted that the closed email list, which he was much vaulted in the access documents that we saw, was in fact, these email lists that he admitted were very easy to actually get onto if he wanted to.
He just had to be nominated somebody or turn up at the right meeting, and it was like, but it's amazing. This is even referred to the word open source intelligence. Anybody could go onto these websites, anybody could go into these spaces and think, but somehow this is important. He's reporting new stuff.
Just to put it into context, he's admitting that essentially all he was doing was copying and pasting publicly available information, attending large gatherings and meetings where he was collecting leaflets and submitting those. This made him the highest paid special demonstration officer in the history of the unit.
And also one of the most acclaimed to judge by his authorizations. But we see this thing is he's constantly being praised as if he's up there gathering things that anybody had access to. It's and you're looking at, is this what SDS intelligence is about?
He says that the reason why it was so important for him to be doing this role was because he was able to provide context that would explain to his managers what these publicly available information meant.
Which doesn't appear.
None of this context actually appears in any of his reports. This would be the old briefings, which there is no recording of whatsoever. Very dodgy.
Yeah, and one of the examples they really focused on in this was his reporting on Jean-Charles de Menezes' killing and the campaign for justice around that. And he was, you can see the inquiry is quite interesting, getting to the heart of this. Was he briefed to target the campaign? He says it was just a watching brief. If he came across something, and then he had all sorts of various justifications as to why he might be reporting on this campaign.
We saw these documents. It was that classic thing of when you copy and paste from multiple sources into one document. There's different size text, different fonts. He just copied and pasted anything he found about the Jean-Charles de Menezes justice campaign into these documents and fires them off. Just a little note about the inquiry. He was asked about his briefings that he gave to Tayside Police about the G8 in Scotland, and it's very pointed questions whether these briefings took place in England or Scotland. If they were in Scotland, the inquiry doesn't want to fucking know. It doesn't want to fucking know because the fucking stupid fucking terms of reference of the inquiry are limited to England and Wales. Though Don Ramble today won't question it, always referred to England because obviously Wales doesn't really exist. It is totally fucking stupid. Totally undermines the nature of which these deployments took place. It makes no sense either in terms of how the inquiry operates. Obviously, because the remit of the inquiry, the chair is only going to be able to pass judgment on events that happened in England and Wales. But there is no reason why information that gives context to that, there's context again, shouldn't come from wherever it took place. I mean, we were given a very long list of countries that hN118 visited as part of his deployment. It was, all across Europe. Yeah, it was put to him that perhaps this was a waste of public money for him to do all this traveling, and he was asked if it was a perk of the job. He claims it wasn't, but it just shows the way in which that. He claimed, this was all in relation to events of policing in the UK. This was to understand the demeanour of activists abroad who were going to come to the UK for protests at a later date. The inquiry doesn't accept that as a thing that it's not even possible as far as they're concerned. It's a nonsense.
Yeah, and it is quite disappointing. And and this also goes to how much, because another related topic they were touching on was, all these groups had national public order intelligence officers in them, like Michael Jacobs, Mark Kennedy, and Lynn Watson. And they were also traveling still together in Scotland. So it was like, so what actually is going on? What is the purpose? They're trying to get to what is the purpose of this unit if it's doing all this stuff, but they've also hamstringed themselves in the process because so much in that area was the international stuff.
There was some questioning, and hopefully, we've been told there'll be more of it. I think it's very important about his knowledge, the briefings that he had about the National Public Order Intelligence Unit officers that were already deployed in the areas. Now, that he was reporting on. Now, he says that he was told, when he was, for example, asked about Cardiff Anarchist Network, he was told that there was already very good coverage of Cardiff Anarchist Network. Obviously, the undercover police officer Michael Jacobs was in that group, the group I was in.
Clown Army.
The Clown Army, he said he was told not to report on them because Lynn Watson was inside the Clown Army. Just for the record, I was never involved with the Clown Army. But it becomes very, he says that there was at the initial start of his deployment, he wasn't told of the NPORU officers. He never did any briefings of NPORU managers, but he did meet those NPORU officers in the field, which is something I have got a memory of, which I've submitted to the inquiry. We didn't get to that section of the collective statement, which, and I hope that we do, because it took place in Germany. I have a sneaky suspicion it might not even get mentioned, which is a ridiculous situation.
And related to that, he said he picked up on who they were fairly quickly. It's like, he's clearly got a lot of knowledge about who they are, and they were trying to, for him, it's all about trying not to do coverage. Yet we know that they're all in the same spaces. So
yeah. We've seen with one of the very few occurrences of him actually attending an event. He spoke about attending a gathering, a dissent gathering at the Sumac Centre in Nottingham. He talks about how somebody from Global Resistance walked in during that meeting, and he thought, "Oh God, I'm going to be confronted." He wasn't. I was also at that meeting. Michael Jacobs was also at that meeting. This was an event that clearly had widespread coverage. Another topic that came up, and I'm rushing really because we're going to have to head back in fairly soon, but something which I think was really key is that there were a great number of burglaries that took place against activist groups during this time period, where things of value were left behind, but hard disks, laptops, paper documents were taken. It's long been believed that these were break-ins that were done by the state as part of this wider infrastructure of repression that we always talk about. He was asked directly if any of the information that he provided was in relation to that. And he talked simply, the only example he could give was about a report that he submitted in 2004 about the security on the Globalized Resistance Office. And he said, that, being asked that, he said he didn't know if it was to be used to make an entry, but he kind of assumed that that's probably what it would be about. Otherwise, why would they want to know? He claimed that nothing that he did was about the disruption. It was pointed out that in the documents we've heard about disruption, is this what they mean by disruption? By going in and robbing the places of key information that and key infrastructure.
They cited the burglary of Stop the War, where membership lists were stolen and it was causing problems. And it was, made clear that they missed the flat screen TVs, but they wanted the hard drives with the data. So Stop the War assumed it was state. I think it's fairly reasonable. Yes.
Yes, it almost certainly was. There's a lot more to come from Simon Wellings. It is a short break. We are due to go back in a second. Yes. Anything else you'd like to add?
Nope.
Okay, please follow along. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please, it makes a huge difference. I noticed in terms of likes, we've gone really far down. I think partly because I stopped kind of reminding people to do so. And it would really help if you did. Please follow the hashtag SpyCops on Twitter, and with the live coverage in the room as it happens.